Welcome back to the Usual Saints. I'm Mike D here with Saint and our special guest interview, Eva Haberman.
Yes, that's me. Hello. You said it correctly, Eva. Yes.
Eva. All right. We're going to get into how I discovered your work. You know, I was unaware of you until I went about and found Troll 3, Under Control, Troll World, however you want to say it. And that's my first exposure to you. And since then, it's led me down a rabbit hole of, learning more about you, seeing Cyst, which is another thing we're going to talk about, and just seeing what you've done in your career. It's interesting because in our podcast, we like to talk about a lot about pop culture, whether that goes sci-fi, comics, that kind of stuff. Movies, we're big into movies. First I want to thank you for being with us tonight and talking to us about your world that you get to live in, that me and Saint, I think, are both envious of. We both are movie geeks and would love to be involved in film and TV and things like that. So,
well, next time you have to be an extra in a movie, in a horror movie, and you get eaten or killed. Something. We'll come up with something, I promise.
That would be awesome. I would love to get eaten in a horror.
All right.
But let's see. So I know Saint just started with Cyst, but I want to start a little bit with what, because I want to do a whole introspective with you a little bit, not like hours and hours long, but what made you want to become an actor? I mean, you were I think you were 16, 17 when you got your first actual role or something, but I think you had started before that doing singing, dancing, that kind of stuff. Is that right?
Yes, that's right. Basically, I always wanted to become an actress. I just loved being on stage and performing or composing songs, and like at my school, and then being on stage playing with my guitar. And I just wanted to become an actress. And so I started taking singing lessons and voice lessons and acting lessons to be well prepared for an acting school. But then it went faster than I thought. And I was sort of discovered for a German TV series at the age of 17. And it was just like a normal audition in the newspaper, which my sister had sort of cut out and put on my table and said, you have to go there. And then that worked out. And afterwards, I started hosting a really weird children's show with ghosts. And also the funny thing about that, or actually, I'm really sorry about that, because it was sometimes a little bit drastic, because I played somebody sort of like in an agency who takes care of problems with ghosts. So one time, for instance, also they kidnapped my teddy bear. And I was like just totally devastated. And then we got really, like from the parents, we got like evil emails saying, you can't do this, you cannot kidnap, because kidnapping a teddy bear is a serious thing. I mean, it sounds like it's not so bad, but sort of like that is like a real person to a kid. So I've always been into sort of like fantasy stuff. And afterwards, I was auditioning for Lexx, The Dark Zone, for a sci-fi show. And so these things seem to attract me. I just really like doing things that are a little bit out of the box and exciting.
And yeah, I noticed that. I mean, would you say that you talked about the children's show, and I think the other show you were talking about, that's Immenhof. Is that the one you're talking about?
Yeah, Immenhof. Okay. Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
So that was your first role, but you get the role on Lexx of Zev Bellringer, right? And
yes.
So that like you said, it attracted you. It's a different genre than probably what you had worked in before. What was that like? I mean, and would you say that was that the first exposure you had to more of an audience outside of Germany, being the Canadian-German broadcasting production company that did it?
Definitely. And for me, it was really exciting because when I went to the audition, they had been looking for either a male actor or a female actress from Germany for the co-production. So either Kai or Zev would have been German. And then when I walked into the audition, the casting director from Toronto basically said to me, "It's you. You are Zev." And I was just going like, oh, this is kind of weird. And then he asked me to do the scene. And afterwards, he was all excited, already saying, okay, you got the job. And I was like, still a little bit doubtful. And I went home and I was so moved and overwhelmed, because that's a very rare experience you have as an actress, that somebody goes right away, it's you. And I was just crying. And my mother thought I wouldn't have gotten the part. And she was hugging me, saying, "Oh, Eva, don't worry about this. You'll get it next time." I said, "No, they want me to come over to get it." Oh my God. And I was so excited. And then they had me fly over to Canada a month later, and we colored my hair light blue, and I did Lexx. And that was such an amazing experience, because what I really like is sort of like diving into an artificial world. I really like shooting inside a studio, because it's almost like on stage. It's nothing to do with the real world. So when we were shooting in Halifax. We got picked up in the morning at around 5 o'clock, sort of like in the dark. We went into the studio where everything was under one roof, the carpenters, the prop guys, like everyone. And when you finished in the evening at 8 o'clock, you went out and it was dark again. So you spend the whole day in Lexx, sort of like in the studio. And I just really enjoyed this, because it gets very intense and very, I don't know. I just love these things coming together and all these creative people working on something, because these things are fun because you don't get to do them every day.
Right. All right. And speaking of that, the theater part, do you have a preference? Obviously, you say that with theater, you can kind of be in the zone almost more rather than having to shoot on location or outside. Do you have a preference to doing like stage work or filmed work, like television or movies or anything?
Well, I like both. What I like in theater, that it's more exciting. You get like really a rush of adrenaline every day, because you never know what to expect. You also don't know what to expect from your fellow actors. I had, for instance, one co-actress, she played my mother, and she was a very moody person, and you would never know what mood you would meet her in. And one time she had just been upset with all of us. I don't know for what reason. So just before we started going on stage, she was hiding because she had a bad conscience and she didn't want to talk to any of us. So like 1 minute before going on stage, she wasn't there. And then all of a sudden she crossed my path and I wanted to talk to her. I said, "Hey, where have you been?" And she said, "Not a word. I'm not going to speak with you." I said, "Well, we are going on stage in a moment and then you'll have to speak with me." And we had a big fight scene in the beginning. So it worked really well. But like you meet so many crazy people out there. I mean, it is exciting. Sometimes it's also really hard, but this is part of the excitement of getting to know so many different characters of people, how they are like. And also on stage, you have to improvise. Like if somebody because like on stage, actually, it is true that I haven't had one show where all of the actors were perfect, where none of them wouldn't sort of miss a line. And then it's really fun. You have to come up with something to get this other person back on track. And then it gets like, "Didn't you want to tell me something about your mother?" The other person still goes like, "You did want me to tell you something, a mother." "Oh, yes. And then, but these are mostly the situation where it's most realistic, where after the audience asks you, "Oh, I loved that moment. That was so intense." And basically it was just sort of like communicating about something that's not working out.
Right.
So
right.
I love excitement. I'm a thrill seeker. If to put it that way.
I mean, that's great. I mean, that probably helps with your profession, because I mean, you get to play those different roles, but you also, when you do go do a film, like I'm going to get to Witness to a Kill, where you filmed in South Africa, I believe. I don't know if you've been to South Africa. I've never been to South Africa. I always wanted to go. And so it's just those experiences that, you're doing your job, you're shooting something, but at the same time, you get to experience something that maybe you hadn't experienced before. And that's probably a great appeal for you as a thrill seeker.
Yeah, absolutely, because you get to know so many countries and so many people and different situations. And usually there are always these stories behind the scenes that are way more crazy than actually the movie is. Or actually, I think the less crazy the movie is, the more intense it gets behind the stage. And the more crazy it is, the more normal the people are behind it. I like so many really weird things, whatever. It's like backstage and an actor threatening the gaffer to beat him up because he sort of went out with the girl he had sort of wanted to go out with. Or like really, it just like, you just can't believe it. It's really insane in a way. And by the way, I don't know if you know the movie Sky Sharks. Sky Sharks is also a movie. Or are you getting shocked about in that moment? Because that has also come out yet. It will come out in Germany in the movie theaters. So it had been postponed because of COVID. And now it looks like it's finally coming out. And also that was such a adventure trip. It took them like 6 years basically to finish it because they ran out of finances. And it was just like, it's really, and also like when I see the movie, I see it with different eyes because like sometimes they had really high budgets. So parts of it looked like a Hollywood movie and parts of it looked like a soap opera because that's just the phase where they didn't have any money. And so if you know the behind the scenes or you know what stage they were in, you see, okay, they didn't have any money. So they hired their friends to do some characters. So it's really funny. I just love this business because it's so unpredictable and exciting.
Yeah, I saw the trailer for Sky Sharks today. So
you saw that too, right? Yeah.
Yes, it was very interesting. Is it? I mean, it almost looks like, and I know some people online were comparing it, and I haven't seen the other films. The films Iron Sky and whatnot about the Nazis in the sky and on the moon and everything. Is this like an unofficial sequel or anything like that, or is it just in the same vein? Or
no, basically, I think it was an idea. Actually, the director tells us this way. It's Mark Feser. That they were really drunk one night. And then they came up with, I want to do a movie with sharks. And the next one said, oh yeah, with flying sharks. Okay, and with Nazis. Okay, that sounds amazing. And with naked women and with real porn stars. So actually in the movie, in Sky Sharks, there are quite a lot of porn stuff where they're like porn stars. There isn't like porn happening, but for the scenes where they're like covered in blood and running around naked, he wanted to have people who are at ease with that. Right. And so for the first time, I met real porn stars and I was just like interviewing what it's like. And there was this couple who basically just films themselves while they're having sex and show it on the internet. And they make tons of money with it. And told me how easy and how much fun it is. And so also that was an amazing or fun experience. But they were just there to sort of like to be at ease with, because like in Sky Sharks is just about, actually it represents the director who also wrote the script, sort of like he loves sex, he loves women, he loves violence, and he loves horror movies. And so this is what it has become.
Nice. All right. I mean, I think Game of Thrones almost did the same kind of thing. They recruited a lot of porn actresses because they were, like you said, comfortable with their bodies and comfortable with the nudity that the show was going to require. And so it only makes sense because, you know, a lot of actresses or even actors, I don't want to say just actresses. A lot of people have in their contracts, hey, you know, I have a no nudity clause, or, you know, you have to get a stunt double or a body double. And so someone who's comfortable with that, it only makes sense, especially in an extra sort of role, or even if they had some dramatic chops, maybe they could get a role and then they wouldn't even mind, you know, showing their nudity, you know, but yes. I digress.
Yes. Yeah.
With Sky Sharks, I wanted to talk about it. So your company, Phantom Film, is the production company for that, right?
No, Sky Sharks, we co-produced it. So that was just a co-production because I was in it as the main actress and low budget, running out of money. And so they just needed some help. So you see, if I do there are so many low budget production that never make it to be released. And I just hate the thought of people who've got a dream and a vision that the movie just sort of, let's just like get stuck somewhere and never comes to life. And so this is something I cannot see. My heart bleeds. And so we were like almost finished. And then again, so Sky Sharks, we were just co-producing.
Okay. Well, I mean, I really admire that. And I know that we'll get into that. That's the entire, I think, and correct me if I'm wrong, the entire reason you founded your production company is because you went to finish Under Control or Trolls World,
Yes,
which couldn't
exactly.
get finished in the first place. And you didn't want to see it languish. And I think one of the directors or creators of Trolls World is actually part of your production company, right? Alexander Koenig?
Alexander Koenig, yes. We found, well, he's also part of my production company, a Phantom Film. And also like Phantom Film has sort of, our goal is to do something that's always out of the box. That's sort of like unusual. That's sometimes not so easy because then people sort of are going like, oh, I don't know if you should buy it because if we show it, we don't know. Because we did another movie just recently, which actually is about depression and alcoholism. And I thought, okay, this is the right way to go. It's sort of artistic and serious and psychological. And again, they say, oh, no, you cannot show that. That's too much. It's too much reality. So I'm just doing things that move me and that where I think, well, I want the audience to feel something like in any way, either be like amused or terrified and so I just like creating strong feelings with movies because to me, that's what movies are for.
Definitely. I mean, I couldn't agree with you more. And that's one of the reasons I'm such a cinephile myself is I go there for an emotional reaction. If I go to a film and I don't get that, I almost don't appreciate it as much. Not the work that was put into it, because, a lot of people may not have the ability to control how the film turns out in the end. But I go there for the emotional response, whether it's nowadays with the high quality television shows that they have or a good film, I can just go see it. And sometimes you just want to go for a laugh. Like, I mean, I feel like we could all be honest. I don't know if Saint's seen it. Under Control. I think you said you did that for fun, right? It's pretty much
for absolute fun. And yeah. And also, again, this movie also had, often there are like budget solutions. For instance, the little troll was supposed to look really scary, but unfortunately it looked like a little green dwarf and it didn't look that scary. Actually, children liked this movie too. And so that sort of like changed the whole thing, but things just happen for a reason sometimes. And maybe this was the better choice, but some things you just cannot change. So the troll wasn't supposed to be sweet and green. It was supposed to be scary, but it didn't really turn out to be scary, but that doesn't matter.
No, I mean, that film, there's one part, I forget the exact line, but I know there was a part where the wizard is in the forest and you hear a line like off camera, like, you're not supposed to be there, or something weird, like it sounded like it was off camera line.
Yeah, no, I know, but we dubbed it. We dubbed it also where he said like, am I already on screen? So like,
that made me laugh.
And also like, yeah, when we edit movies, I also like to edit in things actually that were not sort of like where the actor wasn't acting yet. Like for instance, in Under Control, there's one scene where George was just loosening his shoulders going like that. And we edited it in. And it's so insane because it's such a natural, well, it was just like him privately doing something. So that's also fun. So if actors, they always have to be prepared that they are being filmed. And that's the moments, I like the moments where people don't control themselves, when they are not like aware, I'm acting, I'm putting on a show, where they're not acting, because that's usually the most private, true moments in a way.
Right. No, totally. I get it. And the one you were speaking about, the more dramatic one that your company's putting out, is that The Ugly Truth, the one you were talking about?
Yes, The Ugly Truth. Yes.
And you are starring in that as well, right?
Yes.
Okay.
That one, yeah.
Go ahead. Tell us a little bit about it. I haven't seen a trailer or anything for it. I mean, just based off reading it and seeing, the poster, it seems like a fairly different role than I've seen you in, from the horror / comedy of Cyst to Under Control. So I wanted to know a little bit more about it. And obviously it's something I feel like, just from the way you talk about it, you're proud of, that you guys can put out stuff that is different. It doesn't have to focus on one genre.
Yeah. So this movie, I also wrote the script for with the director. And my goal was to do a mainstream movie that's sort of like watchable, like not totally art house, with a serious theme. So during the movie, course of the movie, you realize, because it's like, it's very, actually the plot is that it's just like a father, a mother, and her daughter. And the mother is getting serious depressions because she had an accident and won't ever be able to walk again because the doctors have made a mistake and they cannot prove that they made a mistake. But anyway, like her leg is ruined. So she gets depressions. The father cannot take it and sort of just falls in love with this really young girl. The daughter cannot help her mother and is just telling her father, please do something. She's just drinking nonstop and she's going to kill herself. And so it's like a downward spiral that just starts out like a normal, like a family that's still sort of okay. But also like while the audience watches it, they sort of don't realize the point where it's already too late, because then it's like a downward spiral and everything goes really, it gets very intense. I don't want to spoil anything, but it's just sort of like in this movie, it's about saying, oh, everything will be all right. But it's not going to be all right if you don't do anything. So this is sort of the message of the movie: do something. Just don't sort of like try to cure yourself with pills or with alcohol. You have to do something. You have to take it seriously. And running away from the ugly truth won't help anybody. So this is like, and we're sending it on festivals right now. It's also been finished this year. Okay. So it's brand new and it hasn't been shown anywhere, but it's like, as we speak, it's being sold sort of like our distribution is selling it in Cannes. And I'm really interested how the response will be, because in Germany, very interesting. We sort of already offered it to a few networks, and they basically said to us that the subject of depression is not relevant to their audience. And I thought, oh, wow, that's good for Germany. I doubt that it's true, but they sort of say it's too realistic in a way. In a way, I don't care. You see, I just want to do things I have fun with and I believe in, and I think they are entertaining. Because if you don't do if you always try to please others and to do what people say, then you always have to be afraid of making a mistake. And I'm like, in my sort of like 3 years of a producer now, I made so many mistakes. I like wasted so much money on things that were unnecessary, like bad calculations, weird decisions, but still it's a learning process. And I just love what I'm doing. It's so much fun creating something and seeing it come together. And it was also like with your movies, sometimes you watch them and you think this is the worst thing you've ever seen. And then you haven't seen it for like 3 months and you think, wow, this is fantastic. So it's always like, it's a love-hate relationship with movies and the makers.
All right. I don't know much about the German like television or film scene. Is it much different filming something there than in like North America with Lexx or with Cyst or anything you filmed in North America?
Well, I think in Germany, they are still very conservative about what they sort of believe in. I don't know how it is right now, but like about 4 years, they said generally would never support genre movies, because like Germany is the most supported. Like if you do a movie, you can sort of go to the state and get sort of like money to get some support. But they basically just said, we don't support genre movies, which sort of comes across really weird to me. What do you support then? Like intellectual movies about World War II or what? But so things are changing very slowly. But I think the Germans at the moment are really very much behind. And that's also why we get to a lot of, I mean, there's so many like fantastic international series. I also, just to be like a little bit more courageous. But if you never try something new, then you'll never find out. And because like, if you always do the same things over and over again, also the same sort of stories, because they say, oh, we cannot do that to the audience. The audience wants to see this or this. How do they know? They don't know. So if you don't try it out, so you have to try it out. It's always about taking risks. But at the same time, I believe if you put a lot of enthusiasm and love in your work, there will be a result.
Definitely. And talking about that, since you said you co-wrote The Ugly Truth, how did what you wrote on the page turn out on the screen? Did it turn out like you expected? Were there notes you had, like for the director or for the actors in that role? Or obviously you were one of the actors.
Yes. Well, it actually turned out of course, it always sort of like a written script is always just the base on what the actors. So the story has to work in a way, but then what the actors make of it is most important. And I'm really proud of all my actors because I just love them like a mom, because I also casted each of them, and in a way I hadn't known them. I just watched them, and also like for the chemistry, I sort of like cast them more for what I see in them than what they do, and what I really also like. That's what also. Basically, you find that in Cyst, you find that in Under Control, and you also find it in The Ugly Truth. I always like to cast actors which play parts they haven't played before, because that's where actors all of a sudden wake up and go like, wow, that's like exciting. I sort of get out of my comfort zone. And that's where interesting things start happen.
Right.
And so like also the actors like on Ugly Truth, also I just casted them for parts they usually never get to play, like somebody who's got very conservative and is like the star of Sunday night love movies. And there he's just really a bad, horny guy and just talks about women, and it's just get out of that path. I just like freedom of like art and of acting, because when you act or when you do movies, you can do anything, because you can always say it's just a movie. But at the same time, it's a little rebellion of myself against things that are already there and that I want. I just like creating chaos. I think that's the
point. That's great. I love that. Do you have a favorite genre that you enjoy performing in, or maybe one that you haven't done yet that you're interested in performing in? Obviously, sci-fi was one of your first things, and you've done horror more recently. Anything in particular that stands out to you that you just absolutely love? I know you've done more comedies too. You did that Ocean's 11 takeoff, right? What was it called? Aussie's 11, I think.
Aussie's 11. Aussie's like from East German. And you see, like Aussie is like West Germans and Aussies, and they sort of try to make this big like coup, and everything goes wrong, of course, because they no experience sort of in sort of like committing such a big crime. And I don't really know, because like there are so many. I always love the characters I play and I get into them, but I tend to like things, what I said earlier, just sort of like that are sort of being surreal, like either sci-fi or fantasy or horror, just sort of creating new worlds and just doing something totally different than you usually get to do.
Okay. And I feel like Cyst is definitely something different. I mean, it's a period piece from what is it, the 60s, would you say?
From the 60s, yes.
60s, okay. It's been a few months since I saw it when I first got the link a few months ago before we interviewed George Saint. I wanted to give him an opportunity to speak on it, having just freshly watched it. I love a nice gross out horror film, and some people say I think there's a comedic undertone to it, but I wouldn't call it a comedy. I feel like it's a straight up like B gross out horror movie, and it's got all the elements there, and the acting. I mean, I like Greg Sestero, Jason. What's Jason's name?
Douglas. Oh, they were fantastic. And especially Darren Ewing, also from Troll 2, as his assistant Preston. I mean, George and Darren hadn't seen each other since Troll 2. They hadn't seen each other for 25 years. And actually, to tell you, I think George wouldn't put it that way, but it's thanks to George that this movie exists. Because actually, George's basic plan was, after he shot Under Control with us in Germany, he had been shooting a movie with Tyler Russell, with the director, called Texas Garden. And there was George in Alabama sitting there. And then he decided, I want to do a movie with this director and with my favorite actress with Eva. And so this is how we got together. And he sort of set us up like on a blind date well, not a blind date, but he set us up in Cannes and said, oh, you just meet. And then like 4 weeks later, they were already coming up with this idea of Cyst. At the moment, at first I said, oh, that just sounds gross. Oh my God, this is just crazy. I don't know. But in that year, I had a lot to do with George because like we are really good friends, Alex and I, and we came over and we had Under Control dubbed in Austin. And we had English voice artists like Christopher Sabat and Jason Douglas. Also, he was playing the troll. We had a lot of like cartoon characters because we wanted to give the Americans something they can rely to and say, I know that voice. And so that year was also like, and then we just came over in summer, not really expecting anything business-wise. And there was George and Tyler coming up with a script. Look, we wrote a script. Shall we read it? And sort of that's how it started. But it's all thanks to George Hardy, who is not making movies, he's plotting movies.
That's great. George, Saint unfortunately didn't get to interview George, but he was a great interview. He was open and honest, and he was funny the entire time. And so I can get the appeal what you see in him. I mean,
yes,
Under Control was probably a weird experience, but you had fun with it. But then just taking that guy, he seems such a larger than life personality, everything he does, and to put him in this character of Dr. Guy, which is just insane. I don't know. I thought it was a great horror movie. I hadn't seen one in a while like that. Something unexpected, a little monster. I don't want to spoil anything, so I don't know. We'll bleep out anything we're not supposed to say. But a little turn to the film, let's say.
No, but George also, like in that, he has to play a character that's really narcissistic and quite evil. And he kept telling me about the nightmares he had during the shoot. And he started saying to me, Eva, I start being afraid of myself. I'm so real. I said, George, don't worry about this. No, I'm so evil. And he's so lovely because what I like about him is that actually he's not like sort of like he didn't go to acting school or anything. He's just natural and but he's so passionate about it. And so we always went through the lines and he asked me, so what can I do here? And why am I doing this? And so we were just also figuring out a really great backstory. What you usually as an actor, you sort of write your own biography, where you come from and what you are. And he had such an amazing ideas. Like, for instance, I mean, Cyst was sort of, it plays in the 60s. So we sort of I asked George, so how did Dr. Guy get the money for his practice? And then he said to me, my neighbor, in his fantasy, my neighbor, he was selling alcohol, which he wasn't allowed because of the prohibition. They weren't allowed to sell it back then. And so he says, Dr. Guy said to his neighbor, okay, if you don't want me to go to the police, just give me $15,000. And he would do that. But then he would go to the police anyway and get also money from them. So this is basically how Dr. Guy founded his practice. And so everything about this guy is just wrong. Like, you see, Dr. Guy, the professor, he's just very narcissistic and very egocentric, and he has got this dream of making a machine to get famous, and he wants to impress everyone. And me, as his assistant, who actually he's sort of in love with, he wants to impress me with creating a machine. And all I do is say, no, don't use this machine. It's dangerous. And so it's also like in a way, it's also an emotional plot that you don't really see. You just get little glimpses of it. But I really thought I liked the idea that said a man is inventing something for a woman and she doesn't want him to show it to anybody because it's dangerous. So it's also about like this sort of like, in a way, love-hate relationship between the two main characters, because even like also in a horror movie, there have to be emotions. Emotions always come across in whatever you do.
Right. I totally agree. And George is absolutely lovely. During our interview, he said, "Oh, you guys have to come to my home in Alabama and come hang out on the lake with us." And I actually was going to take him up on that. We were planning on going to a convention.
You have to do that. It's amazing.
I'm going to.
It's amazing. It's so sweet. And he's got a boat. We were there 2 years ago on the 4th of July. And watched the parade there on the lake. He's like, he's got little dogs that go like, wow, wow, wow. Frisbee, they call it. George is just like, it's his own little universe. He's amazing.
All right. Say,
and you have to see him as a dentist. You have to see his dentist like his practice. Yeah.
I will see the practice. I don't know if I'll get a cleaning. Not that I have anything against George, but I have my cleaning here next month. We'll see. Maybe I'll get a cleaning from George Hardy. That'd be a story to tell for the rest of my life.
Absolutely. But also, I don't know if he'll lose any clients, because if they see how crazy he gets as Dr. Guy and Cyst, they probably will cancel their appointment, being afraid that he might kill them accidentally.
Are you saying you think he took some of his experience as a dentist for Dr. Guy?
No. Actually, like for his handwork, like forever, what he does, it looks very professional because he's got the very still hands, and it looks very real, the way he does things, and also how he talks to clients. Like not the Dr. Guy way, but still there is something he can use from that experience very well.
Right. All right, Saint. Talk to Eva about Cyst. What were your thoughts on the movie, or what questions did you have for her about that?
Yeah, first, Eva, thanks for being on with us. I watched it just the other day, and I really like when the use of classic B movie horror tropes that was in it. It felt very campy, very fun. It seemed like all the actors seemed to be having a lot of fun. But what really caught me by surprise is how physical it was, especially for your character. It seemed like every other scene you were getting something squirted at you, or you're getting knocked around. So I just wanted to know, for you as an actress, and I guess you're the lead of this movie. It's going through your perspective. For you, having to take such a role, being so physical, is that something that you enjoy doing, or like the other movie you were saying? To be a more emotional part where you have to do more acting, which do you find more engaging to you? Do you enjoy the physical stuff where you might get, blood, or I don't know what you call cyst juice squirting on you, or,
it's pus. It's not really, I don't get any blood really. I get mostly pus. And the question is like, also, I was really curious for Germany, because it will also come out in Germany, how they would rate that, because I imagine it for them to sort of judge it. Is pus 18 or 16? But pus is also 18. So I was surprised, because I thought because that's sort of like something you're not so used to, like how do you rate goo or pus? But I love doing physical stuff. But physical stuff also is sort of attached to emotions of being really mad at somebody, of beating somebody up. And I love this one fighting scene where basically Dr. Guy and I are just sort of trying to almost kill each other.
Right.
And that was almost my favorite scene of the whole movie, and also of shooting it, because that's just so unusual that you get to do that.
And also it's that scene where you kind of get the idea that Dr. Guy is actually in love with your character, that, the emotion that's coming out of there, that's kind of like a marriage that falls apart. And obviously he's, a crazy person. He's borderline abusive, or he is abusive, but it comes from a place where he actually is in love with your character. I found that very interesting, that through a fight scene that you show no, this guy, he's in love with her, or maybe he doesn't know how to show it, or I don't know, maybe.
Because he's actually jealous of me wanting to save Bill. So that's why he doesn't want me to get out, and I get really mad at him. Yeah, but that scene was very, very special and very much fun. And we also, of course, we had great stunt guys, because some things we just couldn't do. But most of the things were done by ourselves. And also I'm putting I'm breaking sort of a jug on his head. And like we were both terrified of it. Like I was going like, I cannot put a jug on his head, and George was scared. So there's one screenshot where you see that he goes like this, and before I hit his head, I go like that because I felt so bad. It feels so wrong. I mean, it is like sugar glass, so nothing will happen, but still, it just feels wrong because I really like George, and I think also because we do have like a really good connection that really helps it sort of to get this sort of like people to show these two that have known each other for ages in a way.
Right. And we do a lot of Saint and I. We went to San Diego Comic-Con. What's it been? Almost a decade now. Jeez, it's been a while. Do you do a lot of conventions over in Europe, or do you get over to North America for a lot of conventions to see fans? I mean, obviously with COVID, that's a different thing. It changed some things and whatnot. But do you have that chance to interact with fans, get that one-on-one personal connection, get autographs, whatever they do, pictures? I don't know what they do.
I actually really love doing that, but I haven't been to so much conventions. I actually can't tell you why. I don't know if there's more going on in America. I've been in Vienna to a FedCon, but I really like that. I also do have a fan club, whom at the moment we do Zoom meetings like every 2 months for an hour. And I just answer questions and talk to them. So that's really nice. And also they are the guys I'm doing this for. I want to entertain people and not just like, and they appreciate it. And they also like, they just experience sort of like my fan club has existed since 2002. So it's been a long time, like almost 20 years. And so we sort of grow older together, and they sort of see all the faces I went to and what I got to play. Because like at a time, like for 10 years, I was the romance queen of Germany, sort of like doing all these Sunday night movies, very large audience always, but playing this sort of lovely girl where the mother of somebody would like me to marry him, like sort of like that, sort of like the image, what people sort of connect with me. So at the moment, it's also sort of like a rebellion of saying like, I do something else now. Because honestly, also like an actress has got like, I think every actress has got her best phase between 20 and 30. And afterwards, you're sort of like being sorted out after a while, because it's very hard afterwards to survive. And so that's also why I started doing my own movies, because I said, okay, if you don't see me in those characters, because the thing is, if you've always been like sexy and pretty, that lasts sort of like for a time, but afterwards you have to get more into these character roles. But if nobody gives you these character roles to play, sort of you have to show them, because like they don't have the imagination to imagine you in other parts. So this is also why I sort of produce my own movies, because that's finally where I can show them other sides of myself, because that is in a way to me, I don't want to like be dependent on, hopefully somebody discovers that I can also do this or that, because it is difficult. But I mean, being a producer is no less difficult, but still it's very exciting. And also you can sort of, you're more of your own boss. Oh, I cannot hear you for some reason.
Oh, I'm sorry. That was my microphone. Okay. My dog was barking in the background. I was trying to turn that off.
Yeah, okay. What kind of dog do you have?
The chocolate lab. She's out with my wife in the other room, but I hear her barking. So
I love dogs. Dogs are so sweet.
She's a big sweetie, but she's a year and a half old, and she doesn't know her energy, and she doesn't know to stop jumping on people, even though we've had her trained. So eventually, hopefully, she'll get to the point where she's a little calmer.
Well,
but yeah, right now she's out of the room. No, I mean, I totally get what you say. You know, you hear about, I don't know if it's ageism or, you know, people, producers, the people who make those decisions, putting people in certain categories, like you said. And I think that's a very smart thing to start producing your own stuff. Not that you are by any stretch of the imagination a category beyond anything else. I know you always describe yourself in the roles that you were cast on early on. What is it? Hot blonde and sexy, or hot young and blonde, or something like that. That was the 3 words you kind of used. And so to be able to make those decisions, like whether you're writing it or producing it, and being able to help yourself advance your career to where you want to be. I mean, that's kind of the smartest thing you could do, I would think. And that's you're CEO of a production company, and you can kind of help make those decisions. Not that you're forcing yourself in a role, but you can get a role that you think you deserve because A, you're writing it, B, you're casting it, and you know your limitations and your talents. I'm sure if you didn't think you were right for something, you'd probably say, let's go cast someone else in that.
Yeah. No, and also, like, I'm not, like, for instance, of The Ugly Truth, I'm not the main character. I just always, like, for me, it's like in my movies, whatever we do, I also want to have at least one part in. If it's the main part or smaller part, doesn't matter. At least I want to be part of it, because that's also, I'm not only a producer, I also want to sort of act, because I just love acting. And and I just love all this. And with Cyst, I mean, the idea was basically by Tyler and by George, and they caught me by surprise and talked me into this.
Well, I hope to see you guys work together. I mean, I watched, before we interviewed George, I watched, I think, all of Tyler's films that I could watch, because I was hoping to get an interview with him. Still am, maybe we'll get one down the road. I watched Texas Cotton. I watched, the other one George was in. It's like a racetrack one.
Rusty, was that
Yeah, Here Comes Rusty. That's, that
but
one.
Texas Cotton is really nicely done. And also, like, what George plays there, it's like really, it's awesome. George has a talent, but he's just somebody who's like, and the nice thing about him, he's not aware of what he's doing. He's just doing it. And he's like a child, just sort of like a child would say, I'm a cowboy now. And so I'm a cowboy. So what else? And this is what I like about him. And he's having so much fun. So on Cyst, I mean, he isn't that young anymore. And I frequently asked him I said, George, here's a chair. Now sit down, please. You're wasting your energy, because he's always up on his feet watching other people. I said, no, you sit down now. So I was constantly with him, like following him with a chair around, because George wouldn't sit down, because I said, you need a rest. You need to save some energy. You cannot just keep on going like that all day.
Well, I want to see what's next for you. Do you have anything lined up coming out besides the Sky Sharks is coming out this year, I guess, Cyst as well, and The Ugly Truth? Do you have anything that you are auditioning for or hoping to get, or what's next for Phantom Film as a production company?
Well, there are several things. So I shot an episode of The German Love Boat this year in Namibia, and that will be shown in Germany on the 1st of January. 22, which is like a really great evening for people to watch, like after New Year's Eve. They're like really tired. And so we shot that also during COVID lockdown, which was very interesting, because it was like, for the first time, usually when you shoot the Love Boat, you're shooting it on the cruise ship while it's working. And now it was just like an empty, like a studio, and was just on the dock. It wasn't moving. So we also had special effects guy with the green screen when we were like, but when we're like outside, so then it looks like the background is moving, like the ship is moving. So we had the whole ship to ourselves. And there we also had a little movie theater, because there was nobody there besides the film crew. And in the movie theater, I also showed, we also have made a behind the scenes, like a 30-minute behind the scenes of Under Control. So we showed that. And so we had like a movie night each night with different stuff. And so this will be coming out. And also, I just auditioned for something for a Netflix miniseries. It's about a mass murderer who sort of kills women and puts them into acid, sort of have them dissolve. So it's actually based on a true story. Well, we'll see about that, because he was like a real gentleman. He was like sort of Jack the Ripper, sort of, but I don't know. But he was a little bit like, what's it called? American Psychopath? Oh, what's it called? The one
American Psycho with Christian Bale.
Yes, exactly. Sort of like that. Sort of like a very two-faced guy, and he's a wonderful actor. He's also been in the lead of Dark, of that Netflix series. Have you seen Dark ever?
Yeah, I've seen one episode. Yeah.
Sure. It's Oliver Masucci. I don't know how you would pronounce him. Plus, I'm planning to do a pilot movie for a series, which is for more like a target group of between 14 and 29. It is about 3 guys of the age of 17, and 18. And their main goal in life is to get as many goals as they can, to get famous and to get a lot of money. And that is their goal. And whatever they do, it usually goes wrong. And so it is about their friendship and about that constellation. One of them is sort of like the boss that tells the others how to be a real macho, but they are not real machos. They're really bad at it because they just want to be something they are not yet. And it's very awesome to see them act together. And basically, I had casted them together in The Ugly Truth, and it worked so well that now we are doing a series out of that. And it basically is, in a way, it consists of those stories that you tell each other later, like when you're like 30 or older, like after 5 beers, you tell your friends, do you remember when we did this? Oh God, how it went wrong. So this series is about that. So it's very unusual for Germany. It is written by a Canadian guy called Nate Wilson. He's 25 and he already started doing movies when he was 19. He's writing the script and I am supposed to receive it, tomorrow, hopefully. And then we're going to translate that into German because I want to shoot it in German anyway, because it's quite edgy. It shows a lot of sort of sex and drugs. And it's really... But I think it's very authentic. Also for the generation, sort of like, what do you want to become in life? I want to be a star. That's interesting or something. You see these 3 guys and they're very lovable and they still live at home because they have no money and their parents take care of them. And they sort of like have a double life, sort of like with the guys, it's just adventure pure. And at home, they're like really sweet little kids. So it's about that. So, and it's called Girls. So this is what we're aiming for next. And so we're looking at shooting the pilot movie in the end of the year.
All right. That sounds awesome. And if someone wants to join your fan club and do the Zoom meetings with you, how do they go about doing that? I have to give you the address of the fan club leader because he decides who gets in. And so at the moment, I think he decides that nobody just gets in. I can send it to you later. Then you can give it the email address and then you can be in the fan club. It's That'd
not so difficult.
I would love that.
It's like a secret fan club. And we also we used to have before COVID, we had real fan club meetings. So then basically we would just sort of hire a restaurant and have 50 people there, always quite exclusive. And then I would just come from table to each table and talk with everyone for half an hour and sign autographs and talk to them. So it was my private FedCon kind of thing. But it's always really nice. And they're so different people. What they do is one is an engineer, the other one does this, the other one is a composer, an IT specialist, and very interesting. And
you didn't ask me to, so shut me down if you tell me no, but I wanted to make sure people knew you had a cameo as well. You seem to have a lot of fun with the messages I saw up there. Cameo.com/Eva Haberman.
I love doing that. And I love the more information people give me, the more I can sort of talk to the person and tell them. And I really enjoy that. But it's also, I think it's part of me that I also host traveling shows and I have no problems to talking into the camera. Or some actors, they're actually really shy when they're not playing a role, but I feel very comfortable also just being myself. And so cameos, I'm just like myself and just sort of try to figure out what the person might be and what she or him might want to hear and make them happy. And absolutely. You can promote my cameo, then I can do more.
All right, I will. Well, I just want to thank you for your time, for coming on and spending, it's almost been an hour just talking to us and helping us learn a little bit more about, your career, but also film in general. And hey, you have to, you and Tyler or any director, you have to figure out something to come film. And I live in Florida. I'll be an extra on anything you come film down here. I just have to take time off from work and figure it out. But come film something
we
here.
Can arrange that. Okay. We can arrange that. Yeah. You just have to talk to George George usually just arranges movies by sort of like, but really, George is not planning movies, he's plotting movies by like, I ask him and her to come to the same place and then, So this is what George is like. He knows what he wants.
I got to tell you something weird that me and Saint and we have two other members that aren't here right now, but we have a little messenger thread. And so George has sent me emojis on Facebook in Messenger, and I don't understand what they mean. I think the first one he sent me was a hearing aid on an ear, and I said, "Hey George, what's going on?" And he didn't respond. And then I swear it was like a week or two, maybe a month later, he sent me like a pair of lungs, and I said, "George, what's going on?" And I haven't gotten a response, so I don't know. I think maybe it's an accident, or he's being kind of that weird George that I love.
I don't really understand. You mean George Hardy sent you those?
Yes, little here. I could probably pull it up. Little emojis. It's just the weirdest thing, and we haven't talked about it on the podcast because not many people will get it. Here we go. I don't know if you can.
I've always kind of felt like sometimes I hear actor Bill Murray. He'll do some random things to people, and he won't explain what he's doing.
No, I think he doesn't know what he's doing sometimes. It was more like him trying to do something on his iPhone.
Yes, I love that. I just to get these random. I hope I get another one soon. But anyway, I want to thank the lovely Eva Haberman for joining us today on The Usual Saints. It's been a treat, and anytime you have anything to promote, come on, and we'll gladly have you on to talk about it or anything else you want to chat about.
Absolutely.
Yes, me too. And we'll meet in Alabama at George's house.
I would love to. I'll go.
Okay. I'll talk to George about it.
Yeah, schedule something. I'll come up. I got time to take off from work. My day job is not fun, so anytime I can get off from work, I'll take it.
Oh, you will love that, but you'll stay there forever then. And George will say, "Yes, stay here," because he's such a guy. Okay, and I'll send you the email of the fan club if you like.
All right, that sounds great. Eva Haberman, thank you for being on The Usual Saints. We're going to take a quick break and we'll be right back. You've been listening to The Usual Saints.
Thank you.
Okay.